Hey guys, welcome back. Today we are covering the life cycle of a flood outbreak, specifically the 4 stages that it passes through as it gains biomass, intelligence, and spreads across planets and star systems. So the first stage is the feral stage, and this is what the flood were in during Halo Combat Evolved. This begins right at the beginning of an outbreak and leads all the way up until a full Gravemind is formed. As suggested by the name, during this stage, the Flood act very erratically and aggressive, mainly due to their lack of central intelligence and thus a lack of coordination. The main goal for the Flood in this stage is basically to get out of it as soon as possible. They do this by spreading like any other virus does. They infect hosts, turn them into combat forms, and also increase the overall volume of Flood biomass. After collecting a shitload of it, they set in motion the first step of their evolution by creating a Proto-Gravemind. Biomass is combined and chemical reactions between it occur, which leads to the construction of this large mass that acts as the first central intelligence for the Flood. However, the Flood do not stop collecting biomass here. This is only the beginning. They have to keep collecting more and more and delivering it to the Proto-Gravemind so it can grow in both size and intelligence, so it can eventually form into a fully sentient, actual Gravemind, which then propels the Flood into the second stage of evolution, the Coordinator Stage.
Alas, brother, the Flood, it has evolved!
So, in this stage, as the name kind of suggests, the Flood really start to become a threat. They begin infecting and assimilating all life forms in the local ecosystem, either turning them into combat forms or using them as biomass. During this stage, the Flood supercell that I've mentioned like 1,000 times in these videos creates the first instance of a Flood structure, like I mentioned in the last video, the Flood Hive, and uses it to spread Flood spores into the environment, effectively turning the Flood into an airborne infection, and massively increasing the Flood population as a result. As the Coordinator Stage progresses, the Flood gains the ability to create Flood supercells on its own, negating the need of a sentient host to be infected by an infection form to create any Flood forms. This right here is the point where pure forms can be made, which turn the Flood even more aggressive and deadly. All of this stuff is controlled by the Gravemind, a sentient central intelligence, with vast knowledge that's transferred between all Graveminds that ever came before it. The Gravemind helps make the Flood more coordinated, tactical, and organized. It also has the ability to infect non-sentients, like AIs, by the use of the Logic Plague, which is literally the digital version of a Flood infection. In the background, while all of this is going on, biomass is still being gathered and environments are still being infected by the Flood, both spreading the outbreak even further and also helping to grow the Gravemind in both mass and intelligence. This stage has been initiated quite a few times in the past. Of course, the most notable was during Halo 2, but it actually begun a long time before the game. Delta Halo's monitor, Penitent Tangent, was extremely shitty when it came to containment protocols, so not long after the end of the Forerunner Flood War, there was a massive Flood containment breach in the depths of the ring that went completely unsterilized, and led to the formation of the Gravemind that we all know and love. It also happened even longer ago, during and before the Forerunner Flood War. When the Flood were first conceived, when they were merely the corrupted dust that the precursors ground themselves down into, ancient humans used this dust on these dog-like creatures that they used to own called Faru, which eventually led to the first known Flood outbreak and ultimately the outbreak of the Coordinator Stage. A little bit after this, the distant Forerunner planet of Seaward was the first Forerunner planet to be infected by the Flood and sparked both the beginning of the Forerunner Flood War, leading to the complete downfall of the Forerunner civilization, and also the creation of the Gravemind that would be responsible for this. Okay, so as the Flood continues to grow in biomass and intelligence, and notably when it has access to advanced technology, it reaches a point where it's possible for it to engage in space travel, and begin spreading across the stars. This is the third stage, and it's known as the Interstellar Stage. At this point, the Flood have assimilated entire planets, soaking in all the biomass and knowledge there is, so to continue to grow, it needs to spread to different planets and solar systems. As they infect entire planets, Graveminds evolve into Keyminds, which are essentially hyper-intelligent planet-sized Graveminds. These things are so intelligent that they're capable of using their ancestors' neural physics, which we could also call space magic, and manipulate them to their will. As it spreads and gains access to interstellar technology, the Flood assimilates this technology using an advanced form of the logic plague, which allows them to use it to their will. Now, this stage has only ever happened once in the final days of the Forerunner-Flood War. As the Flood was spreading throughout the Forerunner civilization, infecting planet after planet, they were growing simply too large for any solution that wasn't the Halo Array, and thus the array was fired, ending all sentient life in the galaxy and requiring it to be reseeded and essentially, in layman's terms, hard reset. Okay, so they are the 3 stages that we absolutely know for sure exist, but there is one more that is purely hypothetical that you can assume using logic does exist and would occur as a 4th stage after the Interstellar Stage, the Transgalactic Stage. Now, it's during this stage that the Flood have not only infected entire planets, but entire galaxies, and have a total understanding of all knowledge it has to offer. Therefore, they must begin spreading to other galaxies and infecting new species to continue to grow in knowledge and also biomass. At this point, they are basically unstoppable, and the thought of a Flood force this strong entering your galaxy just completely unannounced would do just a little bit more than send a shiver down your spine. To put it nicely, you'd be utterly fucked. Now, hypothetically, if the Forerunners didn't fire the Halo Array, this stage would have been kickstarted, and not only our galaxy, but likely reality itself would have been absolutely fucked beyond belief. So, they are the 4 stages of Flood evolution, with the last one being purely hypothetical, but very likely to occur if you leave a Flood infestation completely uncontained to just spread for a long time. This level of depth is one of the thousands upon thousands of reasons that I love the Flood so much. They're so much more than just basic space zombies. They're hyper-intelligent, lethal, and deep space zombies, if you will. Thanks a lot for watching, guys, and I'll catch you in the next one.